My dad never showed up but came when it mattered, and that changed everything. I was already shaking when the nurse tightened the monitor on my stomach, but the real panic hit when the beeping sped up. It felt like the room snapped in half. Someone yelled for a doctor, someone else pushed my bed toward the hallway, and all I could think was that I was about to do this completely alone. I kept telling myself I shouldn't be surprised. People like me get used to empty spaces. I grew up with a father who was always almost there, almost at my school play, almost at my track meet, almost at my college move-in, almost never turned into never so many times that I stopped counting. After his spinal injury when I was 12, he shut down. He hated the brace they gave him, hated the way people stared at his limp, hated driving because it reminded him of the night everything went wrong. My aunt used to take him everywhere, but after she passed, he just stopped leaving the neighborhood. He told me short distances were manageable, but long trips drained him. It was easier to pretend I understood than to keep getting disappointed. When I got engaged, he said travel would flare up his back, so my cousin stood beside me at the ceremony instead. When I graduated from nursing school, he texted me a blurry thumbs-up photo from his recliner. I laughed it off. I told everyone I was fine. I even convinced myself I believed it. So when I went into labor early and called to let him know, his long pause felt familiar. I could hear him thinking about gas prices, traffic, how much pain the drive might cause him. He said something about maybe tomorrow, and I told him not to worry. I said it gently, the same way you reassure a neighbor, not a parent. My partner wasn't there either. He'd flown across the country for a tech expo because he said due dates were flexible. I pretended I wasn't angry. I pretended a lot of things. But when the doctor said my baby's heart rate was dropping, and they needed to prepare for surgery, every wall I had built around myself cracked at once. I kept searching the faces around me, looking for someone who belonged there, someone who loved me enough to stay, someone who wasn't afraid of inconvenience. They pushed my bed down the hall, and my throat felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing my mom were still alive, wishing anyone in my family had ever put me first. When I opened them, I saw a man limping toward me, moving faster than his body seemed able to. For a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but then he stepped under the bright hallway lights, sweating, breathless, clutching the railing to keep himself steady. It was my dad. He hadn't worn his brace in years, but there it was strapped tight around his torso. His face was pale from pain, and he was shaking harder than I was, but he kept coming until he reached my bed. His hand grabbed mine like he'd been holding it his whole life. I asked how he got there, and he just shook his head. He told me he drove. The same man who avoided highways, avoided long trips, avoided anything that reminded him of the accident, had driven 4 hours in the dark. Alone, right before they pushed me into the operating room, he leaned over me. He told me I was stubborn and strong, and he didn't deserve to miss this. He said he wasn't going anywhere. Those words stayed in my head while everything else blurred into alarms and voices. When I woke up, the lights were softer. My throat was dry. My stomach felt heavy and sore. And he was there in a chair pulled so close to my bed it touched the frame. He was hunched forward, watching the tiny bundle in the bassinet like he was afraid she might disappear. I told him he could hold her. He lifted her slowly, carefully, like she was something fragile he didn't trust himself with. His hands shook the whole time. He told me he was sorry, not in a dramatic way, just quiet raw. He said he'd spent years convincing himself I was better off without him, that after my mom died, he didn't know how to be a parent without her telling him what to do. He said staying away felt safer, because showing up meant facing everything he'd failed at. But when I called from that hospital room, he realized he'd been lying to himself. He wasn't protecting me. He was hiding from the guilt. And this time, he refused to be too late. I told him the truth I never thought I'd say. He came when it mattered. And that changed everything, because for the first time in my life, he didn't almost show up. He showed up.